So I made notes for this because what I noticed about the topic, as I mentioned to you guys 2 weeks ago, I was at a treatment center offering CFR because the following day I was giving a presentation called Addiction to Chaos, Why Trauma Bonding Feels Safer. Because I have experienced a lot of therapists in the community that struggle to support and treat codependency. And I would claim and own that I'm a self-proclaimed codependency expert. One, because I got 45 years of experience in it and 20 years of recovery in it. But I know I don't have to prove this. I just want to speak into my passion and my intention in being in the trauma and addiction community is codependency. The proprietary treatment model that my company uses is built around the idea that numbing and medicating, what the rest of the world may call addiction, and that's a whole nother topic, I can go into that later, but numbing and medicating is a byproduct or a survival skill of trauma, and trauma is about an unmet need. So codependency is the relationship language or the dynamic we use to survive those dysfunctional family systems. And I feel like that's just a mouthful right there. Like it feels really meaty. And that's what I hear from a lot of therapists and why I was asked to go do that training. Side note, I was badass. I kicked ass. I don't know if I said that last time or not, but I really was. And felt really good about sharing my lens and perspective on addiction to chaos, trauma bonding, codependency, and what that means. Because as you guys know really well, I hope, it's not about blame and fault. It's about fact. It's not that I prefer trauma bonding over peace. It's that it's my only thing my body knows. So tonight I wanted to continue on that topic. I know we did a little bit more last week, but I just felt this need in my own body this week to really acknowledge my recovery around emotional safety, and really also own that that is not a term most adults in our culture use. And I think there's a lot of recovery people that struggle with that term. And I don't mean that as in they don't know what it means. I mean that as in embodying it. Remember, I have a discernment. I call it a judgment too, but it's a discernment that there's a difference in therapy and healing. Therapy has a lot to do with stabilization. Healing has a lot to do with addressing wounds and injuries so that they don't become patterns. Amber's definition, please don't Google that. I own it. It's mine. And in this arena, the idea and the conceptualization that grounding and being embodied are also not the same thing. I am capable of grounding myself in the present moment, but that don't mean I'm living in my body emotionally. And I think, I don't think I know, I want to make this really clear in that I'm not judging and attacking my own industry either. We are fellow travelers too. And many of us are in our own recovery process. And so shedding light on this is a huge passion of mine because it is my own personal journey, but it's also a huge passion of mine because I teach what I need to learn the most. So the more time I spend in this, the more I'm healing me. So this is not about judgment. This is me owning, this is what I do as a human, not just as a therapist or a healer. So when you hear the term emotional safety, I want you to just think about what that means to you. And if you work in the field, great. Allow your lens to be adopted and make your definition in your head. Think about what it means to you, emotional safety. And I am going to refer to my notes because I'm going to own this topic was very I need a word. I have been accessing this a lot this week as a loved one was really suffering due to a lack of safety. And I got to be one of the people to provide support. And I got to be one of the people to offer help. And if you know me, you know those are also two very different things. So I need to refer to my notes tonight. So if it looks like I'm reading, I am. Because I want to be able to stay in my body and support myself from my notes earlier. So when you think about emotional safety and you think about what your definition of that is, I want you to remember that this is a very old relationship. And the way that I learned to feel emotionally safe happened way back when. And so today, as an adult, as a 45-year-old woman, 20 years of ACA recovery, recovering codependent, perfectionism, like it will be how I care for myself always. And it's going to always be evolving. This relationship is rooted in trauma. And it's likely rooted in dysfunctional survival skills. Why? Because it either was created by big T trauma. Remember, that's an old term now, but remember, those are like big experiences that our human mind allows us to recognize as trauma, and little T trauma, the quieter stuff, the neglect, the things I didn't get. And remember, Amber says little T trauma is sneaky. We minimize it a lot because our culture thinks if the police wasn't called and if there's food in the fridge, we're good. That's bullshit. Those are basic needs. Our standards are higher than that. And when we think about emotional safety, my relationship with emotional safety is rooted in trauma. That's how it came about. So asking yourself, is this relationship with emotional safety because of big T experiences that maybe come up immediately in your brain? Is emotional safety a result of little T trauma? Amber's definition, death by 1,000 paper cuts, or both? And when I use my survival skills to create emotional safety, I will stay stuck. Because at times, Amber, who's 45 years old with 20 years of recovery, the survival skill that comes up when I don't feel safe is all or nothing. That's not bad or wrong, you guys. It happens because that shit works. But the problem with it is a form of control. It is a form of controlling my environment rather than staying connected to my body and in my body. So if you and your nervous system learned early on that people were not safe, well, we built this really effective plan and it looks like I'm going to control my world and I'll remove myself from it, either physically or emotionally, which means I will cut some people off like that and justify and rationalize why they are not good for me before I will negotiate anything. or it means I'm going to dissociate and just check out of my body. But either way, I'm gone. It's all or nothing. And what that taught my body back then when I didn't have any other resources is control and isolation feels safe because it worked. And as an adult, that shit still works, but there's consequences to it because I need to be connected. Otherwise, I got to keep upping my numbing and medicating in order to stay disconnected. I have to keep isolating, or I have to keep using substances, behaviors. I got to keep working to stay out of my body, and that creates the insanity. I want to offer you some somatic signs, and there's another video on this, but tell me if you want these notes and I'll send them to you. I'm happy to. I want to read some of these out, and I want you to notice if this happens for you, because these are survival skills, and these are some things that if I'm participating in them, they're all or nothing, and they're keeping me stuck. They're going to be categorized by the 4 Fs: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fight for me shows up as I start clenching my jaw before I even notice it. And did you see what I just did? This is what I'll look like. Because my body knows, yep, this is what we do. And notice I'm shutting that mouth, because boy, can I go off. Fists start closing. Even if they're down by my side, I might start fidgeting. Chest feels tight or hot. Voice might get louder or sharper. And my heart rate is probably racing. I also have this really cool superpower where from here all the way down will turn red. It's really hard to hide that shit. Those are fight signals. Yes, I'm only 5 foot tall, but boy, does my adrenaline think I'm Hulk. Flight signals. Purposefully using a little bit of humor just to make sure we're staying embodied while we learn this. Flight signals for me, my stomach feels like it drops. Like I got a pit in my stomach. My legs will get really restless and I'll probably start tapping my foot. My breathing gets really shallow. Like I can't feel like I can't get a deep breath. My thoughts will start racing and looping. And I all of a sudden want to just end this conversation and leave. Like there is no, okay, I'm going to walk out now. I need a pause or a break. No, I don't use that. It's like, okay, walk out the door. Or, okay, get on my phone. Free signals look like I can't hold a train of thought. My mind just goes blank. Somebody could have asked me, "Em, what do you want from Chick-fil-A?" And I can't access anything. My body feels really numb. So if somebody were to say to me, what I know is some of you guys' favorite question, what's happening in your body? I'd probably respond with, I don't fucking know. It feels numb. So validation, if you are like me, I feel like time is not going fast enough. My eyes kind of glaze over. If you're talking to me, you can tell I am not there. And I can't tell you what was just said. I have no idea. My fawning signs, when they show up, look like, okay, yep, got it. I smile, like you could have told me you're fired, and I'm going, okay. Like my face doesn't match what is happening. My hands are really sweaty. Like I feel like I'm having a heat flash, even before I was in my hot flash era. Or my hands get super cold. My feet get super cold. And that's because all the blood's rushing to my organs because I'm in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I sometimes will have that knot in my stomach. And back to that beautiful red splotchiness that I can get, I'll have a tightness in my throat. So oftentimes my voice will go up and I'll talk like this instead of what I usually sound like, which is, I don't know, grounded. Lots of apologizing for breathing, apologizing for existing, constantly looking around, probably not making eye contact because I'm assessing the situation. And if you ask me what's wrong, I'll be like, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that happen in my body when I don't feel emotionally safe. The problem that happens in our recovery process is if we don't address these as survival skills, where I go all or nothing, it keeps me stuck. And I can really lose myself. I'm isolating so much because that's the only tool that I know to use, or I'm so dissociated, I'm not witnessing or aware how much I'm isolating. I really feel powerless because I don't feel like I have a lot of authority over what's happening. I'm isolating, so I'm not connecting with anyone or anything. And then that creates the cycle of feeling powerless. So sometimes safety means all or nothing. And I mentioned that earlier as to why this came up for me this week, because I have a loved one in a really scary situation. And when those relationships, I've shared before that Amber's definition, I know some of you love when I do this, the late stage codependency can look like domestic violence. There's a loss of power. There's a loss of control. There's a loss of identity. When we are in that stage, I do not want to confuse emotional safety and all or nothing, because that is all or nothing. That is a time where if you've been in a session with me, I'm telling you what to do, which it's not because I'm breaking my own rules. It's because that is my rule. The only time it is okay for a therapist in a clinical dynamic to tell a client what to do is for safety. And so that usually looks like a safety plan. This is what needs to happen. This is when it needs to happen. And this is how it needs to happen. It's not optional, because at that point, it is emotionally unsafe, it is physically unsafe, and mentally unsafe. So just because I am reinstating that and it temporarily looks all or nothing, that's not bad or wrong. That is stabilization. That stabilization and getting back in my body is necessary in order for me to identify and create the boundaries that I have to create in order to feel safe. A phrase that I use frequently is, in order for us to get back to a place of embodiment and grounded, we need some clean oxygen. And if I'm in a home that is frequently triggering my emotional safety, there's not a lot of clean oxygen, because I don't have any control over anyone else that's there. I only have control over me. And sometimes that emotional safety can only happen when I am not in that environment. And then if that is you, I'm going to develop that discrepancy. Why is a place you call home not creating safety? Clean oxygen. Once I get clean oxygen, that is stabilization. Once I am stabilized, I can then say what I need. Then my therapist isn't telling me what to do because I can do it. Do you hear the progress in what just happened? If I'm not getting clean oxygen, I need somebody to tell me what to do. That's called help. That's not enabling. That's because of safety. When I get my clean oxygen and I'm recognizing what I need, that's called support. Because then I might just need some processing. Reflect back to me what you hear. Tell me how you experienced this and what boundary you used. Help and support are two totally different things, and we use them intentionally. So when we are in recovery, I get this question a lot. Spoiler alert, this is fucking, okay, just stick with me for a second. Spoiler alert, we don't get to feel emotionally safe in our body all the time. It's not fucking rainbows and butterflies. The way I know that I am in recovery and I'm triggered is that I stay in. It's that I don't do all or nothing. It's that I'm not isolating entirely. I am intentionally removing myself from a stimuli. I am not cutting shit off. And the goal is that I breathe through it, like literally or figuratively, but I stay in. I don't abandon me. Before I said I dissociate or I control all or nothing. I don't have to leave all or nothing, and I don't have to leave me all or nothing. So we're going to talk more about the tools at the end and the dynamic to go from a survival skill to being embodied and emotionally safe during a trigger is a boundary. And if I don't know how to do that, it's because I need stabilization first, which is clean oxygen. And then I will be able to state what it is I need. When we talk about our survival traits being connected to our relationship with emotional safety, there is an amberism phrase that can be quite triggering, and it really allowed me to have so much clarity in my own personal program, ACA program. Not about blame and fault, just about fact. But it's why I say it so often, because I teach what I need to learn the most. The people that were supposed to love and protect me happen to also be the people that hurt me, intentionally or unintentionally. And so today in my body, when my husband says something that triggers my body, but my husband is harmless, that's the moment where I wish my body would listen to my brain. Like, he's not the lion, he's not the bad guy. And the pattern or the behavior that is showing up is still rooted in that survival skill. That wound or that injury is still related to the only way to feel emotionally safe in this pattern is to control, check out. It's polarized. So I know that many of us know that, and we work on this relationally in all of our work. The relationship with me and me is what helps me with the relationship with me and others. And it still doesn't change that I need a reminder that that tool that I'm using is ancient. And I have newer tools, and or I'm gaining them or learning them. And so what does it mean to be in my body? What does it mean to recognize the trigger while negotiating feeling safer? What would that look like? And if I've tried that and I say to my therapist, this shit ain't working, well, it's because I got to stabilize first. It's because I need clean oxygen. So looking at the relationships in your life and where do you reach for control? And, or maybe that looks like, where are you numbing and medicating? Because that's what's allowing me to stay dissociated. And looking at that wound or that injury as the opportunity to create some of these boundaries, to heal through reparenting some of the wounds that aren't allowing me in my adult self to create the boundaries that I need. When we think about emotional safety, it does not mean that I'm never triggered. It doesn't mean that the rest of my life is rainbows and butterflies. It means that when I am triggered, I recognize I'm triggered and I use my tools and my resources to recreate more safety in that moment so that I can create a different outcome. And if that can't exist, or when I try it, I can't get to that point, excuse me, that means there's a wound or an injury that I still am healing. And so the invitation to bring that back to a therapy session, because there's a part of me that I can't do that by myself. I can't talk myself out of that, or I can't talk myself into that. And it doesn't matter how many books I read. And it also doesn't, give me that back. Meetings and support absolutely help, but to get unstuck, that's a healing. It's not a show me how to do it and then I can just go do it. If your body shuts down, you can't push through that. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to mention tonight around emotional safety. And it's not coming to me. So, recognizing that in my recovery process, these are opportunities throughout my recovery journey of 20 to 40 to 50 to 60 years where I get to still reparent that deficit. That part of me that was never parented, didn't get what it needed, or got everything it didn't need, whichever is the case, it's the opportunity for me to reparent that. And by reparenting that, I am offering safety to a little part of me that never got it. Yeah.